Breakfast. Time to stare into space, as we do every Friday at this time, with Dylan Storey. Thanks very much to the Auckland Stardome Observatory. Dylan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And a big week for spacey stuff, with SpaceX finally getting off the ground with their Falcon 5 heading off to the space station. This is really a new chapter in space exploration.
Yeah, it is. It seems to be. Seems to be the talk of the space world these days. It's quite a significant event, getting a private spacecraft up into space, and not just sort of swooping up into space for a few minutes like they used to, but actually achieving orbit, and more importantly, actually, it's planned to dock with the International Space Station on Friday. So it launched a couple of days ago, and the Dragon capsule, as it's called, the end bit of the spacecraft, the part that actually travels in space, all the rocket part is just to boost it up into orbit. So the capsule is now in orbit, and it's performing a series of maneuvers to get it into a similar orbit to the space station. And today, or I guess last night our time, it successfully did a flyby of the International Space Station. So it was spotted from the International Space Station.
Yep.
So this basically means that its manoeuvering's going quite well. If you can imagine all the space when you're up there, 350 to 400 kilometres above the Earth, there's a lot of area. So trying to find an object in that area is pretty difficult.
True.
So and it takes many orbits of the Earth to really minor corrections, little boosts of rockets to get it to slowly sort of sync up with the space station. So the pass-by today was a success. So looks like all the manoeuvring capabilities are looking right, and we'll all go for a docking on Friday, where it will come in basically into line. So it will fly alongside the space station, where both will shut down all boosters and rockets, so they're both just free floating. And when the Dragon capsule is within 10 meters of the International Space Station, it will reach out with its arm it's got this maneuverable arm that they do work on the station with.
Yeah.
And so it will reach out and grab it and pull it in, and it will dock. And after a short period of testing the air, which is standard procedure for any docking spacecraft, the crew will open the doors, and they will have 460 kilograms of fresh cargo to unload. So that'll be good news for them, new food and resources. And so they'll spend about a week unloading the cargo and loading it back up with stuff they want to send back to Earth. Now, this is the first US mission to reach the space station, albeit a private one. It's the first American one since the shuttle, so about a year. And the space station has been supplied by crafts from the Russian space agency, but they're not crafts that can take stuff back to Earth. They're ones that they fly up supplies, and then when they land, when they come back to Earth, they just burn up in the atmosphere. So this is the first craft since the space shuttle to bring supplies back.
And how's it going to do that? Well, what is it, a splashdown or a landing?
No, yeah, it's a splashdown, so it's not a touchdown like the space shuttle. So it will land through a series of. It will slow down mainly through its heat shield and then through parachutes, and it will splash down into the ocean and be rendezvoused by various waiting boats.
It's kind of Back to the Future in that respect, isn't it? Back to the early days of space flight, where they didn't actually land a craft.
Yeah, it is funny how technology has increased so much in some ways. You know, the computing capability of these things is just orders of magnitude better than the early spacecraft, and yet we're still it's basically the same mission. But the landing in the Pacific is where New Zealand comes into play in some way, because we occupy a longitudinal niche here, which is very handy and in a lot of ways, really, for observing. Just to clarify what a longitudinal niche is, if you slice the world into vertical segments, we're the only landmass on our vertical segment, so our longitude of the world. So that's it's a big advantage for New Zealand in a lot of observing things. So when there's a celestial event, say a supernova or gamma ray burst somewhere that needs to be observed, the big European and American, South African telescopes, when they might be observing it, the world will turn away, so they're no longer facing it. So New Zealand's telescopes are the only ones that can see it at a certain time to maintain constant monitoring. So that's why we are important, and we'll be important in the landing of SpaceX, because the radio telescope at AET University will be tracking the Dragon capsule in our longitudinal niche. So when none of the other big radio telescopes can get it, we can.
That's very cool, and they're contracted obviously to SpaceX to do all that sort of work.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure about contracted, but there's some sort of it's all prearranged.
Okay, so the fact that this is an unmanned craft and it's actually working, and let's hope the rest of the mission goes well. It means that SpaceX can really start getting cracking and getting manned craft back up to the space station. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that will be the next step. So the Dragon capsule is designed for crew, but this test flight doesn't have crew in it. So that, yeah, if the rest of the mission goes as well as it has so far, then that will be the next big step. Getting people back up. And then there's, of course, the sort of the precedent that sets, I guess, and it's no longer just governments. I mean, it's only three. There's only three agencies have ever got things into space orbit. So it's China, European Space Agency, and apart from America, European Space Agency and Russian Space Agency. Yeah. So the fact that a private company has done it is pretty significant and could be sort of opening the way for future, well, the method, I guess, of getting future space missions happening. Having said that, it has been contracted to from NASA to supply the International Space Station to the tune of almost $400 million. And so NASA has been supplying a lot of expertise, and a lot of scientists from NASA's shuttle program have switched over to SpaceX. So they're not exactly starting from scratch, you know.
No, that's true, and they really are just continuing the mission. Well, that's fascinating stuff. Thanks very much, Dylan. We'll talk next week. In the meantime, go along, of course, the Auckland Stardome Observatory. Always all sorts of good things happening there, and don't forget the transit of Venus just around the corner as well.
June the 6th.
Yeah, week after next. Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, well, it is. Thanks, Wammo.